You might know that I'm a big supporter of going all out when it comes to a car. Instead of getting the base model of a luxury car, you go for the fully loaded version of something that maybe doesn't have the same prestige because you can get more features, tech, and usually power. I'm not a huge fan of base models, but that's what we've got here. Our showdown is on the 2-liter Kia Stinger and the BMW 430i Gran Coupé. Both of these are base models, but they have very similar kit and very similar power. In fact, I think that these two vehicles are very comparable. And while you might not be going into the showroom looking at the 430i and then going directly across the street to the Kia, I think it's an important showdown to go through, because I want to show you that there is enough going on with the base model of each car to be compelling no matter which one you go with, but then to also give you some information if you are looking at a $50,000 compact executive sedan and you either want the BMW, or maybe you want to save 10 grand and go with the Kia. Now, I'm sure, like always, I have people already typing away on their keyboards telling me how could I even fathom comparing a Kia Stinger to something as prestigious as a BMW 4 Series. Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I don't care because I do whatever I want. And second of all, I really do think that the Kia Stinger is a true competitor to something like this, because at the end of the day, I mean, especially as configured, this 430i Gran Coupé has essentially the Premium Essentials package. It's one option which adds couple things that the Kia doesn't have, but for the most part brings it kind of in line. They're both rear-wheel drive platforms, both have all-wheel drive, both have 2-liter inline-4 turbocharged engines. The Kia Stinger has a 255 horsepower engine. The BMW 430i has a 248 horsepower engine. So they are very close in terms of power. And at the end of the day, the base models still represent what most people are going to be buying, at least for something like the 430i. Maybe not so much the Kia Stinger, especially when it comes to the enthusiast groups. The people there are definitely buying the best of the best. But I think the one major benefit for us here in Canada is the fact that the 430i Gran Coupé is sold exclusively in Canada with the M Sport package. So you get all the fun-looking exterior bits that makes the 4 Series look just so much better. And again, brings it into line with more of what the Kia Stinger has. Because again here, the base model Stinger has all the fun bits from the GT Limited. You've got the darkened chrome accents, LED headlights, and all the fun stuff to make it look more sporty. Same with the 4 Series. Now we are going to take the 4 Series on the road first, talk about how it performs, handles, and everything else about it. But before we do, I want to give a big thanks to BMW Sherbrooke and Group Park Avenue for letting us come out here and film this episode of Test Drive Showdown. They've always accommodated our requests when it comes to the videos that we've wanted to film, and they've just finished a complete renovation of the entire dealership here on top of becoming DIN Performance certified. So if you want to get some fun bits for your BMWs, this is the place to come. So big thanks to them for letting us make this happen. Now let's take the 430 on the road. So there's a couple of housekeeping things I need to talk about before we really get going with our showdown here. First of all, the interior here is different. This is a blue interior on the 430i Gran Coupé. So aside from the few shots you're going to see right now of the differences in the interior, which I really like, you're going to be seeing everything that we filmed before with the press car. It's going to be a blue car, and I know it's a little confusing because the Kia Stinger is also blue, but all the shots that we're going to be using that are just for the 430i, they all came from that blue 430i. So just keep that in mind, that this car is black, the Kia Stinger is blue. The footage you're seeing is a blue car, and then you might see some black car footage too for the Stinger, because we might be using some stuff from the GT Limited. Second thing I want to talk about is this car has about 70 kilometers on it. We're not going to be doing any racing or super performance oriented stuff with it. This is not my car. BMW Sherbrooke is nice enough to let me use it. It is going to be sold to somebody at some point, and that person doesn't want it to have been beaten to. We had a lot of people complain when we did the Infiniti Q50S versus the Genesis G70 that I didn't drag race it. Again, aside from the fact that this car is not mine and it is brand new and hasn't been broken in, how would you like one person to do a drag race? Onto this car. The reason why I picked the 430i to do is body styling. I mean, it's very similar in terms of what the Kia Stinger has to offer. Both of them are like a lift back fastback design. They're both four-door cars. They both have roughly the same power. Like I said, this one's a little less, but at the end of the day, really, if you were to drag race them side by side, it'd be pretty damn close. But the reason why I picked this to start with for our showdown is because I want to talk about the top-end vehicle. This car is, loaded probably what most people would be looking at. It doesn't have all the features, doesn't have a HUD, but you still have dual zone climate like the Stinger. You still have a heated steering wheel, your front heated seats, and a back seat space that, you could put a child or two back there. So tech-wise, they are pretty similar. Power-wise, they are pretty similar. But there is still, roughly a $14,000 difference between these two vehicles. Some of it has to do with the iDrive system. It is vastly better than what you get with the Kia system, plus it's also a bigger screen. You also have a sunroof, which that might be a benefit for some people, and a digital cluster, which I think is something that the Kia Stinger really could use at this point. So you do get some more stuff going on. This also is a prestige vehicle, right? BMW is a prestige brand, is a proper luxury brand, so you are paying for that. But that's why it is such an important showdown, to show you the difference between the 430i and the Kia Stinger. Not because this is a bad car, this is a great car, but because the Kia Stinger is also such a great vehicle. It's not just a Kia with a nice body kit on it. They really engineered that car to compete with something like this. Like I mentioned, both of them are rear-wheel drive chassis vehicles with an all-wheel drive system on there. Both of them are designed for performance. This Kia Stinger handles just as well as this. And if I had the opportunity to take a car like this and the Stinger on a track, I guarantee you they would stay pretty damn close to each other, assuming that the drivers are both pretty competent. These cars both provide a level of enjoyment that you really won't get with something like your run-of-the-mill mid-size sedan. It really is something different, and that's what I like about driving this. It reminds me why the 430i is such a great vehicle, and why people do buy it. It's the whole reason we did a showdown comparing the 3 Series in this, because I wanted to know what the difference is. It is sportier. You do sit a little bit lower. The seats are tighter. The interior space is a little bit more narrow. People want that. You get that with the 4 Series. You also get that with the Kia Stinger. And yeah, the 430i might not be the car that the enthusiasts are going to be researching. They're not the ones that the people like us are going to be desiring over. But still, at 248 horsepower, it is more than enough to get the job done. It's what you need. Might not be what you want, but it is what you need. So if you were to give it some gas off the line, sounds good. I mean, I know that they're faking it. At least with the Kia Stinger, though, they tell you that they're faking it and you can turn it off. But there's no reason why a 2-liter inline 4 turbo should sound that good. But that doesn't matter to me how much is faked or not. It sounds good when you're driving it. The most important thing is your level of enjoyment. And that's the whole reason why I like driving this kind of car. Sounds good. It pulls well. It feels solid on the road, something that you don't get with a lot of other cars. BMW still has that sport pedigree built into their DNA, and they do not let it die. But Kia, on the other hand, they don't have that level of pedigree. They don't have any sportiness in their vehicles up until really recently with the Stinger, and that's why it was such a surprise. Because up until now, Kia has been making affordable, consumer-friendly vehicles. People like them. Especially now, they've gotten a lot more reliable over the last little while, which is certainly a good thing. But that's one of the reasons why the Stinger was such a surprise. Because if you do want to give it some gas, it goes. And it sounds pretty good doing it too. Maybe not quite as good as the 430i, but it still sounds good. It still has that performance. The ride is good. But when you do sit in them back to back, you realize that the BMW is just a little bit better, right? Everything's just a little bit better. Maybe the steering is about the same, but the comfort's just a little bit better. The ride's just a little bit better. The performance sounds just a little bit better, right? And when you start to add those up, you realize why the 430i still sells well, because it is a true sport car. It's not a sports car, it is a sport car. It is sporty. It has the performance that you kind of need. Maybe you want to go up to something like the 440i, you certainly could. You can get an M4 if you really want to go balls to the wall. But when we are comparing these more or less base models, You do realize there are a couple things you get on the BMW which are nice. Like I said, the navigation. It's nice to not have to plug my phone in all the time. Black headliner, something that Kia could do on this trim. Sunroof as well. And I think that's the thing, right? BMW sells 3 Series. They sell tons of 3 Series. So they can have things like options and packages and individual things you can add to that vehicle because they sell them in such high volume. But when it comes to Kia, they don't sell a lot of Stingers, and especially the GT line here, they don't sell a lot of these. So it is hard for them to say, well, you know what, we'll make 30 different options so that people can get the Stinger they want, because you're going to have a ton of them sitting in inventory. But it would be nice, you know, to have the sunroof, have a bit of extra light in here. And there are some things, we actually are talking about that more on our episode of Test Drive Garage on this vehicle, because we do have it for such a long time. We go into more depth with it. But again, this is such a competent vehicle compared to the BMW. I mean, it's so damn close and really a fraction of the price. I mean, we're looking at $39,000 for this car. And like I said, you miss some of the features here and there. You have to go up to get another package on the BMW to get some of the fun stuff that we saw on that one. But I mean, if you were looking really at the base model for each one, it's a $10,000 difference. That's a lot of money. Maybe not as much if you're leasing it. It's about, I believe, $100 per month between this and the BMW, so that's a little bit more affordable. $100, you know, maybe you cancel your Netflix subscription and you don't eat out quite as much to be able to afford that BMW. But I really love driving this car, man. But that's the thing. I've had this car for a couple weeks now. I've had a number of other vehicles that I've had at the same time, and I've still driven this. And to be honest, perfectly honest with you, if I had to choose between this and that 430i Gran Coupé for 3 weeks, BMW said, here you go, just you can take this or you can keep the Stinger. I'm keeping the Stinger, man. This car is so unique out here. I've seen 3 or 4 of them in the 2 weeks that I've had it so far, whereas 3 and 4 Series, I've seen probably 200 of them. This car is a little bit more exclusive. And if that's what you're looking for, then really the Stinger is the one to go for. But it is different. They're just slightly different. But still, man, when you drive these 2 cars back to back, I would be very surprised if you're really an unbiased person. If you're like me, you can sit down, kind of reset your mind and open it up to new things. If you drive this back to back with really any of the 3 core luxury compact executive sedans, either this, the A5, which we were hoping to do, the A5 Sportback, or something like the Mercedes C300 4MATIC, if you were to sit down in either one of those and then drive this and tell me that they are not very similar in terms of how well this car handles, performs, and rides, well, then I guess we have different opinions. But I'm telling you that this is close, and that's one of the reasons why the Stinger is still my favorite car today. I've driven so many cars in the last, 16 months, but this one is just still my favorite, even at the base model, because at the end of the day, it is exclusive. It isn't as prestige, but that's the difference. Exclusivity and prestige are 2 different things. But you get so much for quite a bit less. Plus, if you really do have the budget, if you really are somebody who's looking between something like a base model 430i Gran Coupé and you've got the budget, you've got about $50,000 or whatever it was, about $780 a month Canadian for a lease, then I just would recommend getting the Stinger GT Limited. You get a much more powerful engine, you have a lot more tech going on with it, and I think that it's a handsome car. Like, styling again is going to be subjective, but you park these 2 cars next to each other, Stinger's looking really good.